So the Bernie Bros smear is back, and it's worse than ever. MSNBC is really going to jump the shark here.
There's a ceiling. There is nowhere to go, but there is no up to go. And all of those support, I actually overheard someone saying that I thought was an interesting point, that basically at this point, if you are still supporting Sanders as opposed to Warren, it's kind of showing your sexism because she has more detailed plans and her plans have evolved. I thought it was an interesting point, and I think there may be something to it.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
It's a good answer, Chris.
Yeah.
You know, that's embarrassing, first of all, for everybody in that clip. But also, yeah, you're smearing and it's disgusting. And they should all apologize. And I mean that too. They should. I mean, I won't hold my breath, but that is totally classless what they just did there. Millions and millions and millions of people, 47% of the Democratic base voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016, and that's with all the shenanigans of the party managers happening. So the argument is, if you're supporting Bernie over Elizabeth Warren, well, you're just sexists. But hold on, I just did an incredibly detailed video the other day where I explained why it is that Bernie Sanders is preferable to Elizabeth Warren. And every single argument I made had something to do with proposed policies, record, and strategy. Those are the things I focused on. I've said nothing about gender at all. So this idea of like, well, I mean, come on, you're all sexist. Or maybe Bernie supporters, generally speaking, have an ideology and pay close attention to what's going on, and he fits their ideology. I mean, we're talking about a candidate here who wants to eliminate all student loan debt. Does Elizabeth Warren? No. She wants to means test it and only have a certain percentage up to a certain point. We're talking about a candidate who wants to eliminate all medical debt in Bernie Sanders. Does Elizabeth Warren? No. Those are just two examples, and I could give you 1,000 more. Elizabeth Warren voting for Donald Trump's incredibly bloated, disgusting military budget that gave him more money than he even asked for. Bernie voted against that. I can give you so many issues where it's like, okay, Bernie outflanked Elizabeth Warren. Bernie is to the left of Elizabeth Warren. Bernie represents my ideology much closer than Warren does. And for MSNBC to just brush that aside and sexist, I think that's a wonderful point. Yes! If you don't agree with my candidate, you're a sexist. Yes! I mean, that's disgraceful. And also, I should note for the record here, and perhaps you won't be surprised to hear this, but that woman who made the claim, first of all, she worked for like Center for American Progress, which is like, unfortunately, corporate Democrat central now. It used to be the case that they weren't that, and they had some good left voices in there, but then they moved away from that and moved very clearly towards the pro-Hillary wing of the party, neoliberal corporatist. But also, that woman is the daughter of billionaires. Well, that explains a lot now, doesn't it? Because Bernie is definitely harder on them. I mean, we just discussed Bernie's wealth tax the other day. His wealth tax goes well beyond that of Elizabeth Warren. By the way, am I against Elizabeth Warren's? No, not at all. But Bernie's goes further, and I support the one that goes further. Nothing to do with race. Nothing to do with gender. That's the next one. You know, at some point they'll bring up race in one way or another. But it's just so gross. This is what we're up against. And just so everybody knows, this is where you go when you have nothing to say. They have nothing to say. Would they be able to point for point rebut the segment I did where I gave the specific reasons why I support Bernie over Elizabeth Warren? Would they be able to do that? No. They wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't be able to rebut it. So what do? It's easy to just swat it all aside and be like, sexist. Well, congratulations. I hope you feel good about yourself. And this is why new media, my show, is growing, and why cable TV is going in the other direction. Because that's the analysis you get there. That's the coverage you get there. I'd like to think that on some level, deep down, everybody watching that is going to go, that's not right, man. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the MSNBC viewers have been sufficiently brainwashed into zombies who just smear their political opponents in the most over-the-top ways. Maybe that is the case. I don't know, but this is unacceptable. MSNBC should be embarrassed. They should be ashamed. And congratulations, because imagine this is what they're doing now, and then, God forbid, Elizabeth Warren wins the nomination. Then they'll turn around and ask and berate you for not doing unity and joining them immediately. It's like, well, maybe you should have thought of that when you were smearing us in the most over-the-top ways. Now, understand, man, we have substantive criticisms of them, so it's different. It's totally different. Do I want their votes in the general election if Bernie wins the nomination? Of course I do. But my criticisms of them in the first place were always substantive. They weren't personal. They weren't smears. They weren't attacks. It was policy-related. So they should be able to turn around and vote for Bernie in a general election. But when you attack people in such personal ways and you smear them and then you berate them for not doing unity in the general, it's like, well, what did you expect? You just argued that, all Bernie supporters are sexists. Like, what did you expect was going to happen? You thought they were going to bend the knee all of a sudden? You thought that, it would go well for you? Like, so what? I just spit in your eye and slapped you across the face. Now shut the fuck up and fall in line. Oh, you think that's going to work? And then also there's the hilarious thing. Like, what did they do last election? They started berating Bernie Sanders supporters. They turned around and voted for Trump in the general. First of all, no, they didn't. There were more Hillary supporters in the primary of 2008 that voted for McCain over Obama than there were Bernie supporters who voted for Trump and not Hillary in the general. So in other words, her base turned more right-wing when she lost than Bernie's wing did, than Bernie's supporters did in the primary. So that's not even true. But also, there are a lot of Bernie supporters who lived in safe states who, when Bernie didn't get the nomination in 2016, they voted for Jill Stein. Now, how hilariously ironic is it that she's like calling you sexist for not supporting a female candidate when a lot of these people in safe states in the last election voted for a female candidate? But back then she'd berate you. You were called sexist Bernie bros then, but then when you voted for Jill Stein, you were no longer sexist Bernie bros. All of a sudden you were like, I don't know, Trump lovers, unserious people, whatever. They came up with a new smear because they always do. But it's just funny that the same people that call us sexist then ignore the fact that many, many people in safe states voted for a woman in the general. So anyway, the Bernie bro smear is back and it's worse than ever. And you got a little taste of it there.